I partnered with guys who had multi-million-dollar businesses and weren't looking for multifamily to be their day job, right? So they were doing the same thing. So they kind of taught me how to do that exact same thing and treat it as an investment versus a job. And so now 15 years later, I just turned 40 a few months ago, I wake up and I have a huge portfolio, lots of equity, and go, hey, I don't really have to work at this brokerage firm if I don't want to.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Senziano, host of Wheelbarrow Properties Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, chef, father, six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbo. Gino, how's it going?
Jake, I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Tell me why you're doing good, Mr. G-Dad. I want to hear this.
Because I have 6 kids. They're all healthy. One's in college. One's going to college next year. Actually, Jake, you'd be happy with me. I went out and bought a gun yesterday.
Oh, man. Here we go. We're going nuts. Here we go.
I'm buying guns. It's really good down here. The weather's turning.
You got our guests racing 4-wheelers. You're buying guns. I don't know what the folks are going to think about us, but we're having fun. So.
Yeah. Other than that, Jake, everything's good. We just got to take a step back. We're going to talk about mindset today. We're going to talk about the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. I think that's important. Our guest was just talking about during the '08 crash. We forget so quickly how much pain we've been through. And if we can go through that, we can go through the Great Recession. We're going to get through this with no problem, I think.
Amen, brother. So, hey, today's guest is Dave Childers. Dave bought his first multifamily property at age 25. Since then, he has flipped properties, done condo conversions, expanded his multifamily holdings, and created a successful real estate brokerage firm specializing in finding small deals to medium-sized deals. Maybe he's talking mom and pops, Gino. I don't know. We'll find out. So without further ado, Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys, having me on the show today. Who would have known when we booked this, months ago that we'd be living in these times, tornadoes coming through Nashville, viruses,
earthquakes. I just read earthquakes yesterday.
Crazy, man. If I could show you the weather outside, I don't know how it is in Knoxville or Florida, but it is nasty here. The weather.
Dude, I looked outside. It's the apocalypse, man. People are out there with torches and pitchforks? Right?
Pickaxes, bro.
Pickaxes, whatever the hell it is, man. They got guns. They're going nuts here, man. That's all I know. So screw all that. This is about you, Dave.
Gino's going in buying guns. I'm going to buy ammo last night. They're out of everything. I was like, what? What has happened? No toilet paper? Who would have known, right?
Just go take some money out of the ATM, man. You just went to Jekyll Island. It's all it's worth, man. Plenty of that. So just take the paper money.
Hey, Jake, I have one thing to say about toilet paper. Bidet. Just look it up, everybody.
Dude, my wife's been pushing me on one of those, man. We're getting crazy. All right, I'm shutting this down right now. Dave, I want to take a step back because I was doing a little bit of research on you, before the show, and I think there's this interesting story of a guitar maybe and how you got started here. So I want to hear about your background, how you got started.
So I moved to Nashville in 2003 to kind of follow my dream of being a roadie with some band friends. They got a big contract and we're touring the nation. And I said, hey, I'm going to drop out of college. Made my dad cry because I was a finance major up at App State in Boone, North Carolina, and decided to drop out and move to Nashville and kind of live the dream of going out on the road. And during that process, I actually met probably my best friend, my investor, kind of like you two are, guy that put a lot of money into deals that I was doing. And, who would have known being out on the road, meeting a guy in California who helped the band out. That kind of relationship would have started from there. 15 years later, we're still business partners, still best friends. He's like a mentor, big brother to me. And so did that for a couple of years and just decided I didn't want to be in the back of a 15-passenger van with guys or a tour bus, out on the road.
Was it the smell after a while, or were you just hungry?
Oh, man, it was everything, 13 guys on a tour bus or 7 guys in a van and a dog, driving everywhere. We've gone everywhere in this country. And so it was a good experience. I will never, ever, say it was a bad experience. It was fun for a 23, 24-year-old to do. But, so I got in the flipping game from there, and it kind of just started escalating and rolling from there. So
how'd you get into the flipping game?
I watched a lot of TV shows, right? And, my wife and I bought a condo here in Nashville for $50,000 and did some light renovations. It was our primary home, and quickly realized that I had a net worth at that point of $20,000, and I was making go back to the band days, I was making $1,300 a month. It was a labor of love, right? It was not about the money. It was about doing something that I had wanted to do. And, but it taught my wife and I tons and tons of lessons on how to live like the millionaire next door, right? And live cheap and keep our expenses low. And it put me in the position where I could work for equity. And I preach that a lot, allowed me to get into deals and not maybe take a paycheck, but to gain that experience and gain equity in deals and do deals without, having to take a paycheck. And because I kept my living expenses pretty low.
Jake and Dave, I've just heard what Dave said. It should never be about the money. As you get older, that should ring truer and truer and truer. It should be about the value you bring, not about the money you make. I always say profit is the fuel. It's not the destination. And when you're younger, that's what you're focusing on. You're focusing on yourself and you're focusing on making tons of money. There's nothing wrong with that. But to serve the greater good and to be more fulfilled in life as you get older, money is just one of the elements. We need money. But when we're not focusing on money and we're focusing on value and focusing on creation, you're ultimately going to end up making more money, which is pretty ironic. You don't think of it that way, right? So I just had to interject that because I felt that. And, Jake, I've been reading the book on passion. Jake always likes to talk about this. Don't always follow your passion. Jake, give me the story about the passion with your gym and everything like that, because everyone thinks about, oh, yeah, rock band, I love this, or open up a yoga studio or a pizzeria or whatever. This is really important for everybody to hear because it just changed my mindset on it.
A quick tidbit on the Millionaire Next Door before I get to the story. So the one thing I remember from the Millionaire Next Door was that all the millionaires drink Bud Light. That was like one of the takeaways. Like they brought them out. There was like this little test group, and they were like all this fancy stuff. And they're like, "Do you got any Bud Light?" And that really, I think the takeaway for me was I love Coors Light. We call them CL smoothies, right? So that's my thing. And I read that and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I kind of came out of the closet, if you will. Yeah. I came out and let everyone know I don't need the fancy foo-foo things. I drink Coors Light. It's just what it is, and I really enjoy it. So I'm okay with myself. So thank you to those folks and their frugality, because it's okay to drink Coors Light. Now, going back to what Gino said a minute ago, when I got out of college, I've always worked multiple jobs. I need to work 10 to 12 hours a day, just a lot of energy to keep my sanity. So I had a sales job, and then I was working as a personal trainer in the evenings. Because you know what? I loved working out. I always played sports. And I'm like, I love the gym. I'm going to follow my passion. And that's when I created CrossFit. And that's a true story. No one's going to believe it. But actually, people were coming to me saying, I just want to get fit. I don't need to necessarily bulk up, but I want to lose weight and tone up. So I said, we're going to do a little anaerobic. We're going to do some aerobic. And you know what they started saying to me? I hate this. It's too hard. Why are you so hard on me? I don't want to do this. So what it became was like this constant complaining session. I'm keeping it PG, Gino. And they were just whining and whining. I started hating the gym. I didn't want to go. I stopped working out as much because every time I would go, it was this negativity surrounded, with the thing that I loved. I love working out. So what I realized was I took my passion and I tried to force work into it. And now I leave that on the shelf over here where it's, no, my passion. I love working out. I'm going to do that, but it's for me, and that time's reserved for me. And what I found is, when you get really good at something that's going to produce wealth, because we're all about, producing generational wealth for our family here and just creating a life of abundance. And so for me, multifamily was that vehicle. So I put my time into multifamily. I got really good at it. And so that success allows me to love what I'm doing in a way that it's the right vehicle and it's producing what I want. So it's getting in the right vehicle and driving it hard versus, doing the thing that I'm passionate about and turning me against that. So I think that was the kind of epiphany that I had about following your passion.
I love that.
Something and make bank.
You see a lot of people trying to do that with their hobby, right? I mean, I did it. 19-year-old, I started a jet ski repair business in my garage, right? Because I love jet ski. And then I quickly realized, like you, man, this is not, it's not all jet skis and babes in bikinis, right? I mean, it was greasy hands and complaining customers. And, again, it wasn't for me.
Because it's time. And that's what we need to realize. Time is truly the most valuable asset. I know it sounds cliche. I know everyone says that. But what you're actually trying to do is create a lifestyle for yourself through like something like multifamily as a vehicle. So it gives you time, freedom, control over your life. And that's the key. And that's where I think people whiff, because now I can go and enjoy my passion and the things that I want to do on my own time and not have to babysit, if you will.
So Jake, it's awesome. We had a podcast about 2 weeks ago. Somebody recommended the book So Good They Can't Ignore You. Everyone should go out and take a look at that book.
Did you read that already? You're a beast, Gino.
I'm a quarter of the way through it, but what's amazing about it is the reason why I brought this up, because I want to find out why Dave got into multifamily, but I'm trying to set the stage here because a lot of us are confused on what we want to do, what we want to become. Find something that you think you can get really good at, become proficient at it. And then all of a sudden, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years. I have a story of Steve Martin there, who's a comedian. It took him 10 years before he actually became really successful. And I could see Dave in the back of the truck, with his band. It's going to be years and years and years of that. Most of us give up before we actually become really good at something. So I think everyone should pick that book up if they're struggling with what they want to become. I still don't know what I want to become in life. I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life, right? It's a work in progress. The vision constantly changes.
You're already it, man. You became the G-Dad.
It's a constant evolution, my friend. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be the hopefully the G-Grandad sooner or later. But it's important, right? And
that's why I bought the shotgun, Dave.
And I drink Guinness.
Just clean this.
Dave, how did you get to multifamily? What was the attraction, and how did it end up going from single family flips into multifamily?
Yeah, I kind of just fell into it. I was doing wholesale deals like everybody's taught right in the beginning, and I picked up a few duplexes. And back to this business partner, Jim, I was just going to wholesale him a couple duplexes. And he said, hey, instead of me just buying them from California and managing them, why don't we partner up? I'll put the money up, you manage them, you take care of everything there in Nashville. I'm in California. And so I tell people that's like kind of the first syndication or partnership or joint venture was when I was 27, picking up a couple duplexes and, really getting my feet wet, managing those things day to day. And learning the ins and outs of how to do it. So I really fell into it. I mean, I really had no intentions of ever owning rental property. At that time, there were tons of flip house shows going on. I wanted to be, Mr. Flipper, and I was actually on a show called Flip This House. And I mean, that's really what I wanted to do. And then that really tells you, that's where I bought my 114 unit complex I converted to condos. I mean, we were planning on flipping those, turning them into condos, selling them off to college students. And then that's when the great crash happened. And so we were stuck there with these, 115 units in a college town in September, 50% occupied because we were going to sell them. We bought them for about 35,000 a unit, and we're going to sell them for 90, so there's a lot of money to be made. And I told people I was already counting my cash before it even came in, and we were just going to flip them. We were going through them, doing, light renovations, and then, everything crashed. There was no financing for condominiums. So we just said, we're going to keep them as apartments, and, kind of dug myself out of that hole after it for a couple of years.
So what would your recommendations be to anybody who wants to get into multifamily? Because everyone's always asking me, is this the right time? Is this the right time? And my response always is, are you ready? Is it time for you? Because back in 2009, there was a crash. Then in 2013, when Jake and I started, there were deals, but there was no money. And consumer sentiment sucked. It was 1% GDP growth. Fast forward the last couple of years, not many deals, but there's a ton of money, right? And now with what's going on, hey, the deals are popping back up, but where's the money? So, you know what I'm saying? Where's the consumer sentiment? Everyone's running for the hills, right? So to me, it's never the perfect time to get into it unless you understand what your why is. Unless you understand that the vehicle of multifamily is amazing because you have the principal pay down, you have the tax benefits, you have the appreciation, you have the scalability, you have on and on and on. There's so many positives. What would you tell the listeners? How do you get started? What would you say to them about getting started?
Well, I think there's a lot of avenues of how you can get started. We've got clients with our brokerage firm that are just, they want to have 6 or 8 duplexes, and that's kind of the retirement fund. And that's one way to do it. There's, partnering with you guys or someone like myself that actually has experience, putting money in a deal, just starting off that way passively, just to kind of, feel it out and see what it's all about. And, there's a lot of different avenues to get started. But I will go back to that point you made. I hear people say, oh, I'm going to wait till another crash. And I don't think they realize the lending at that time. I mean, we were selling properties and people were having to bring 80% down. To 80% down. Bank was giving them 20%. And that's if they had a W-2 job, they, had experience, and they had all this. So I think a lot of people are just, they don't understand what it looked like, and that's, like you said, there's either deals or there's money, right? and it doesn't, trying to figure out those two things at the same time is the difficult.
That's why you got to be in it to win it. You can't put your toe in and this day and then I'll be in it and be back. You just got to be consistent with it.
Well, and that's, takes me back to, 2008, 2009. I mean, I didn't have anything. I could have just given everything back to the bank. But I knew it was a season of life that we were going through, a really tough time. And I just kept reminding myself that, like, it's going to get better. It's not going to last like this. People don't just disappear from earth when the economy is bad and they need housing. So trying to just figure out, how to get through, like right now, what are we going to do in April when these people have lost their jobs and our tenants, how are we going to, keep them in place? Are we going to give some kind of incentive to keep them there? Are we going to lower rents? What are those kind of things that we can do practically right now?
So David, what were the big learning lessons from that 08, 09 that you brought back into your investing?
I think the biggest thing is, long-term fixed financing is the biggest thing. If like I had to refinance right in the bottom of the crash, I mean, it was bad. Values were down. Everything else pretty much stayed constant. I mean, rents were, in Middle Tennessee, we were pretty insulated. Mm-hmm. So rents did come down. But actually the taxes came down because the values came down. Insurance went down. And then the interest rates started coming down on a lot of my loans. So right after the crash and kind of when we were climbing back out, I'd go back to some of the banks and actually get a lot of stuff refinanced and, get the amortization stretched back out, which would lower my payment. And then we started seeing rents raise. But again, just, get long-terms, if you're going to do some kind of bridge financing, get in and out as soon as you can, have liquidity. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? As we all sit here, I'm pretty comfortable right now because I have a ton of liquidity, and so that's, find partners have liquidity if you don't have it yourself.
Mm-hmm. So how are you underwriting deals? I mean, before this was going on, was it difficult for you to find deals? Were you buying stuff?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. When you guys came to town and did your Nashville mixer and when you came to one of my properties, it was a really big wake-up call for me going, man, I've just got, this brokerage firm I started in 2010 has kind of been, my 9 to 5. I've been building my portfolio on the side and it's kind of been my, side hustle. But now I really need to focus on finding more deals. And so as of January, I said, hey, I'm going to kind of quit my brokerage firm, let a couple agents take it over and just go full time. So I've got a couple of properties right now. We got a 150 unit in Murfreesboro, Tennessee tied up and a 45 unit down in Decatur, Alabama tied up. But now it's kind of, talking to my Freddie lender yesterday, we don't know what's going on with financing because those Freddie guys have to travel to come to your properties to inspect. Well, if they're going to ban travel for these federal employees or these employees, we don't know. So really everything is kind of on hold, I'd say, for the next couple of weeks until we figure out, what's going on.
How's that impacting your contract?
I'm still in a due diligence period. So before that, I think those times run out. We're gonna have some kind of amendment to put some language in to protect ourselves. And I think everybody will be understanding. I mean, we're kind of working with two legacy owners, mom and pop shops. So I mean, to go to them and say, hey, you got to understand the position we're in. And if you want to find somebody else to buy it, at this point, go try. I think they're going to run into the same issues with, Freddie or Fannie or HUD financing right now.
So what was the big aha moment that made you say, get rid of the brokerage firm or step back and focus on deals?
I did a big refinance this year and pulled over 7 figures out. And it was like, man, take that money I'm pulling out, divide by how many years I've owned that. And now passively, I've made more money on that one deal than actively working in my day job,
And that'll do it.
And for my wife too, it was like, I need to go out and find more deals like that instead of screwing around, selling duplexes around Middle Tennessee.
You told your wife about that?
Yeah, well, she's
Dude, so the Starbucks, the Amazon, and the Target just quadrupled on the monthly.
That's why I just bought stock in them, right?
Well, what's amazing about that? If you think about it, maybe you like the security of doing the duplexes and quads, and it was sort of a paycheck, right? Is that was part of the mentality?
It was a day job. A lot of people have their day job and build their portfolio on the side, and that was my day job and my portfolio building were just in the same industry, right? I mean, we were selling 50 small multifamilies a year for the last 10 years. I've made a lot of guys very, very wealthy here in Nashville, and have great business partnerships. Some of them I partner on, some I sell. There's clients that we have that we've sold small multifamily to, and then they've put money in deals that I'm buying. So it's really it's worked well together, and we're going to continue to do that. I still think there's and you guys can talk to this, there really isn't anybody I've found like ourselves, that sells small multifamily that understands what they're actually talking about. So, you got residential agents, you got commercial agents, but there's that space in between that's kind of void. And that's kind of what
It is the void. It's a great term for that.
So why is there the void there? Speak to that, because I tell a lot of students there's owner financing opportunities in that. The 15 units are going online. They're on the MLS, but should they be on the MLS? The financing is a little bit different. You have mom and pop sellers who are like basically have pieces of paper with scraps on rent rolls, and it's just like the Wild West. Where can students find value in that? Because it's a great place to start because it's not overwhelming.
Yeah. And you're not competing against the big boys, as I say. If you're buying that 20 unit, you're not competing against some guy that owns 20,000 doors. There's real value there. The market, kind of locally. I sold a 13 unit up in Clarksville, Tennessee, and it was a firm that owns like 35,000 doors. And they talking to the guy who's bought billions of dollars in multifamily, said, man, this is just a totally different game. I don't know anything about 13 units, how to finance them, how to underwrite them. And we were able to help them sell that property. But it's a great place to start. If you can get in that, 50, 60 unit mom and pop, property, but you have to understand how to look at them and underwrite them. Because if you're going to say come to us and say, I got to buy an actuals, then you're, I'm going to show you scrap paper, and you're going to have to learn how to underwrite those and how it's going to, what it's going to cost you to run it, and what you can get to the
You need to know your expenses is key.
Yeah. And the rents. How are you going to manage it? 50 units is a hard management play. You can't go out and have a full-time manager and a full-time maintenance guy, so you got to figure out how you're going to run it, or 25 doors, or find that management company that maybe has other small properties that you can kind of share in some of those, expenses. So yeah, but there's a lot of money to be made there if you can find them. I love those deals, but like you said, I've had to make P&Ls for people that we brokered. I've had people hand me their personal checkbook registry and say, here's the expenses for the property, and I've had to go through.
We just bought one, and everything was handwritten on these ledgers, and so we had to basically it was nuts, man. It was just stacks and stacks of these old accounting things, and all the files were in the attic. And I just think the hardest thing with these is that typically you can get a good handle on what the actual income is, but you really need to understand what your expenses are going to be, because I think that's where you see so much. I don't want to hate on people, but I think sometimes underreporting. We'll just say that, and because the expenses are typically going to be a lot higher than what you're seeing.
So. Jake, I tried to get out, but they pulled me back in, right?
Dude,
Famous Al Pacino quote, right?
They're great though, man. If you can find a good one next to something you already own and have economies of scale with your management, full steam ahead. Right?
Let's discuss that, because I think it's important. But what I think people should also understand is you need a really great relationship with a community bank, because if you do have income and you can figure out what the rent roll is, a community bank will probably help you out with what the expenses are. They can reverse engineer this thing and help you out. And I will tell you one thing: if you're trying to run a multifamily with 25% OpEx, it's just not happening. You have to understand what that is. So, Dave, people get caught up in cap rates on 5 and 6 plexes and 10 units. That's really not the metric you should be looking for.
Data, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump into when you see an opportunity on a 15 or 20 unit property, how are you underwriting it, and what are you looking for it as opposed to a 150 unit deal?
Yeah, it's again back to on my first call, if I'm buying a 15, which I don't buy 15 or 20 unit complexes, but it's calling a property manager and saying, hey, can you work up a budget? It's crazy, how quickly they will jump in and start working up numbers for you, and write up a budget, and you need to go line by line and say, can you actually get a landscape contract for that, or how are you going to manage it without somebody on site? Are you going to go there and show and do things like that? So, cap rates, yeah, it's a metric we obviously all use. But actuals of the current, back to what you're talking about on the expense side, they might be running it for $1,800 a door, that's how I do everything, is on an annual door expense rate, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's going to cost me $3,000 a door. So, you're going to double the expenses right there, which, could bring the, NOI, in half if
Mm-hmm.
that's how you're working it. So you got to, and that's, I think, the conversation you need to have with brokers is like, hey, I understand that's how the current owner is doing it, but for me, that's not how I do business. I don't go out there and mow my own grass or, plunge my own toilets. I'm going to have maintenance guys, and this is what it's going to cost me to run the deal. So you might be able to find somebody else similar to your current owner, that can run it that way. But for me, it's not, it's not going to happen. So this is what I've got to pay for the property based on how I'm going to operate it.
I love that tip. Dave, do you have any tips on how to find these motivated sellers or these mom and pops that have these smaller deals?
I mean, if you're in Middle Tennessee, you need to call my firm because we're the ones digging those up.
Who is the firm though? We want to know. Get it out there to the folks.
Yeah. It's called Residential Investment Advisors, RIA for short. Again, it's here in Middle Tennessee. We service anywhere from Knoxville. We've sold stuff in Knoxville all the way over to Jackson, and then kind of state line to state line. But we're I don't know. We got 8 or 10 deals we're brokering right now that never hit MLS. You got
anything for us in Knoxville right now?
No.
Okay, just making sure. I mean,
like I said,
you never know.
I know who to call, right?
So, I tried to get out, but they pulled me back in.
I'll take one.
So yeah, I think that, you can always do mailers. You can, drive for dollars, find properties, but I'm just, maybe because I'm a broker, but I'm a big, find brokers that know what they're doing in your market. So
how do you find brokers that know what you're doing in your market? That's an easy thing to say because like we just said, there's residential and then there's really super commercial. Where do you find that really good broker? How can you find that broker?
I'd say get involved in any kind of networking groups in town. We attend 5 or 6 here in Nashville. I have my own that we hold. We always coach students to get on LoopNet and, blast everybody on LoopNet, get on their email list. Are 2 ways to, start at least, scratching the surface and building those relationships. And that's another thing is building relationships. You're not going to call me or my agents one time and we're going to give you the gold nugget that we have in our back pocket, right? You got to build that trust with the brokers. And you guys know that. You got to have those brokers, you got to build that relationship. They got to start trusting you to send you those off market deals and know that you're closers and that you're not going to back out for, dumb reasons. So,
and don't hate on LoopNet either for those smaller deals. They're still, that's where they're going, right? Because everyone's like, oh, LoopNet, why would you ever look at that? Dude, found deals on LoopNet before. Just saying.
Yeah, and a lot of those residential agents that get those listings of those 20 units, and don't write off residential agents because they're sometimes they get things they don't know what they have, and
exactly. A deal is a deal.
Yeah, yeah, they could be overpriced or they could be super underpriced. So don't and another thing too is contact them because that owner might have multiple small properties, right? He could have, you don't like that one. Well, don't piss that broker off because they could have, 10 or 15 other properties that are going to be coming to the market in the next year. We have one right now that is doing that. It's a residential agent. He knew we sold multifamily. We sold one of his properties and he called us yesterday and said, hey, I've got 5 more of those that the seller wants to sell. Do you have anybody? And we're like, absolutely. We can sell that stuff all day long. We'll make your life super easy. And back to the community bank too, I think you need to have 5 community banks lined up, not just one, because a lot of people don't understand how these small banks, their hoppers get full in these certain, multifamily, residential, commercial, and you might be their best client, but if that hopper's full on that multifamily bucket, they're going to tell you that they can't do the deal, and they're going to make some excuse and say, well, it's not that great of a deal. You got to have, those other banks lined up to go to next. Immediately, and not just I kind of had that idea when we got in this business is like, oh, I'm gonna build one relationship with one banker and they're gonna get all my business, and that's fantasy land.
I love that. Before we get to the short answers, I think this is an important question. You could probably answer it almost as good as anyone else. What is the difference in mindset between being a broker and between being an investor, a real estate investor?
Oh man, I get paid when deals sell, right? That's, as a broker, that's what happens. So I'm trying to be a good client to brokers as the clients that I want to be treated. So if a broker finds me a deal and I'm going to go resell that deal, that broker is getting that sale, right? I'm not gonna, I know that the brokers, that again, I want to be on the top of their list. So I need to treat them well. And that means paying them well. And there's a broker that we've done business with that you guys know, and we talk about it all the time. I mean, the client that gives you an extra 0.5%, right, on a sale is the client that's going to get that great deal the next time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting there going, it's funny, people call us and say, oh, I've got all this money. Okay, well, who gives a shit? There's tons of people out there that have money, right? I mean, you're not any, and I'm like, I got 15 or 20 of you guys as clients, who can get this deal done. It isn't going to come back and retrade and over $1,500 is all about the numbers. There's one client, you guys know who he is. I can talk about it later, but I would say, this is when duplexes in Nashville, you could buy them for $60,000, right? And they're a 30-40% cash on cash return. And he'd go, I'm not paying $75,000 for that duplex. And I'd say, go sleep on it and then call me tomorrow morning when you wake up and realize that you're still making a 25% return on your cash. And so he'd call me the next day, you're right, man. I'm sorry. And now we laugh about that because those $60,000 and $70,000 duplexes are worth $300, just for the dirt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we laugh a lot about that. So, I mean, as a broker, you're trying to find clients that, have that like-mindedness, right? And so I've kind of been able to pick and choose who I want to work with, that can see what I'm seeing in a deal, with a huge value add play, or if the owner's missing something on rents or whatever.
So I think the most important thing also we should really talk about is transactions pay the bills. And equity makes you rich. And it just from your story, all of a sudden that equity from that property just set you free and gave you a different mindset. But isn't it hard, Dave, to do that when you're in the grind every day and you're paying your bills and all, you're trying to pay that next bill? You're not focusing on your business and on the equity. Don't you think that brokers struggle with that? And I think you're one of the different ones where you're like, okay, I can see both sides. I still need to pay my bills, but I still need to tend to my business. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to tell people that all the time is, the brokerage firm's what paid Comcast and all my, my lifestyle bills. Right. And I partnered with guys who had multi-million-dollar businesses and weren't looking for multifamily to be their day job. Right. So they were doing the same thing. So they kind of taught me how to do that exact same thing, and treat it as an investment versus a job. And so now 15 years later, I just turned 40 few months ago, I wake up and I have a huge portfolio, lots of equity, and go, hey, I don't really have to work at this brokerage firm if I don't want to. I kind of at this crossroads and said, hey, what do I want the rest of my life to look like at 40? I've got enough assets I can kind of retire if I wanted to, but I love doing this. I think we were talking about I've been on vacation for 10 days and I'm like itching to get back to work. So I think it's funny we talk about making your hobby and your passion, and it's like, man, it has become that. It is my hobby. I don't have to do it. I don't have to wake up every morning. I'm here before everybody else in my office, and I love it. So, but yes, I mean, you got to, I guess you got to keep that day job. You got to keep that. I think that's a lot of people think they're going to find one deal and they're going to, go into it full time, and I guess I'm not a fan of that thinking. I think you still need to. There's a lot of pros to having a day job and having a W-2 job for getting financing and things like that. And so, yeah, but build something. I hear people say that all the time, like, oh, I don't have time. I'm like, man, I don't want to hear it. You go to a 9 to 5. What do you do for the rest of your day? I've been running 6 different companies for 15 years. I mean, a lot can be done with a cell phone, and stop sitting in front of the TV every night.
I don't get that either. I've heard that a million times. It's like, I don't have the time. That's all. Okay.
Well, it's self-fulfilling. If you say you don't, if you say you don't have the time, you're telling yourself you don't have the time, and it's that fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. That's the problem. They're afraid to take risks because they've been good at something, and then all of a sudden they might fail at it. I mean, Jake and I have failed a lot. I mean, it took us 18 months to get the first deal. I mean, if we hadn't had that growth mindset and that ability to get the heck out of what we were doing, we never would have been successful with it. So I think that's really important. Focus on that.
Well, and I had one of my mentors tell me that I was, 26, and I was, it was stressful times. And I called him out on a Saturday. I was just stressing out, and he just pretty much said, like, Dave, do you think I built this, multi-million-dollar, business with 150 employees stress-free? It's par for the course. If you don't like it and you don't want that, then don't get into owning a business.
Then here's a job application, Dave.
Yeah. So it's tough, you have to be mentally strong, and I think that's the thing. Some days I wake up and if I thought about how many, mortgage payments I had every month, I could get stressed. Right. But, I think I've, mentally, like right now I could be stressed out, but you just gotta, you gotta forge on.
Positivity. All right, gang, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
Is your money working as hard as you are? At RAM Partners, we partner with hardworking investors who are seeking true passive income through multifamily real estate. Partnering with RAM means transparent communication with our webinars, monthly statements, and newsletters. For more information, visit rampartners.com to register for our investor portal and to set up a call with our team.
All right, we are back. We were talking habits a little bit before, Mr. Dave. I want to know about your best habit for success, something that you may do on a daily or weekly basis that separates you from the pack.
I think just getting up and getting out of bed and going to work, right? I mean, I have an office in Nashville. I don't live in Nashville. I drive 30 minutes and I just have to force myself to, I don't force myself. It's just become habit, right? So we're talking about me leaving the brokerage firm is I've actually had to kind of unlearn some of my habits that I gave myself. So I would get up, go to the office, start brokering, right? And now I'm kind of having to go, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I shouldn't be going in the office. So, establishing that, daily routine for me has been very helpful as an entrepreneur, to kind of do my task. I'm a huge list person. So I write tons of lists, right? Even we laugh, I write things down that weren't on my list, but that I got done, right? And I cross them off and I move things from, one page to the next page if they haven't been accomplished. So, those are some of the big things that I think I do that are, have made me successful as I go to work every day. So
got to show up, baby.
Yep. Well, I love what you guys, you're in my age, like make it happen. Like you got to figure it out. You can't just sit back and go, well, I mean, I just remember in 07, 08, I had guys giving back properties to lenders because they didn't want to go in and paint it and make it rent ready and just rent it out. They were just like, I'm just tired of it. I'm just going to sell it or give it back to the bank and short sale it. All you got to do is go in there and clean it and spend a Saturday. My wife and I would take our kids and lay them on a blanket and say, don't leave this blanket because the property is so filthy. We would paint the property on a Saturday, clean the apartment, I'd mow the grass and we'd get it rented. And I think it's those sacrifices that, fast forward 15 years, people don't see the sacrifices and how we lived and borrowing cars from people so we didn't have to have car payments. And so they want to see the success now, but they don't see the what we gave up during those days.
Dude, more valuable than that, think of the impression that you left on your kids. You want to talk about make it happen. That is probably more like taking a step back and looking at it. That alone is probably going to be more valuable to you in the long run than any of this other stuff. So that's awesome.
Now they're becoming spoiled brats. So I've got to figure out how to
pull them back, man. Get them on that lawnmower, not the rider either. Get them pushing.
I like that.
I like that too. So
what about a tip for someone starting to scale their business?
Again, just align yourself with the good people. There's going to be people that come in this business and leave very quickly because they realize it's not a get rich quick. So find people who have done it, been there, have gone through hard times. It's funny, you guys, myself, we're so open to share what we do with people, right? I've given my cell phone number out on a dozen podcasts, and it's funny how not many people call me. And there's so many resources out there now versus when I got started. We had to pay $3,000 for a binder with CDs in it and go to Boston for these really, really expensive conferences. And now there's so many resources, people like yourselves and me that are willing to share what we do, how to be successful. And so align yourself, find those people in your market, go to conferences, attend your guys' conference and learn as much as you can. And listen to guys like us. We know what we're talking about.
It's a team sport. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Any book recommendations? The G-Dad. What G-Dad? You hit with what earlier?
It's on my desk right now. It's so good they can't ignore you. And also the other one, Mindset by Carol Dweck, a Jake and Gino student, told me about that. That book is freaking awesome. Talk about, like, Dave, it'll really help with your children, because the problem with what we're going on in school is you have kids that are really smart and kids that are really challenged, let's say. So the smart children, we tell them all, "Oh, you're great. You're so smart." The problem is, as they get out into the real world, they get kicked in the nuts or whatever, and something happens, and all of a sudden they can't react because they were the smart ones, and they won't take challenges and they won't grow. Whereas what you need to really be telling your children is have the growth mindset. I was just reading with my daughter this morning. She's in 6th grade. We homeschool. So I sit down with her. I'm not telling my kids they're really smart. I'm saying, great job. Keep working hard at it. Because the harder you work, the better you will be. That's the growth mindset, because it's a constant growth, constant evolution. I don't want to put them on a pedestal, because when they get out in the real world, they're not going to be the smartest. They're not. But what they can control is they can control how hard they work and how hard they want something. So for me, that was just completely revolutionary.
I love that.
Because I'm always thinking about, why do people what's the word, when they just they go out there and they try something and they just quit right away? It's because they don't want to.
Saying like self-sabotage?
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Jake. I'm sorry. Self-sabotage, because they see themselves as they're really smart at it. It's not for me in multifamily. They were rocking it in single family. They're rocking it in whatever they're doing in their profession. And they come and try something new, and it's all of a sudden that rocks their world. They're like, I was so good at everything. Now subconsciously that's telling them, maybe I'm not that good. Don't think that. Have the growth mindset, because we all start at ground zero. Every skill that we have in life, whether it's walking, whether it's sales, whether it's networking, whether it's negotiating, whether it's running cap rates, we all learn those skills. And a person with a fixed mindset is not going to take that challenge on, is going to say, you know what, I don't really need that. The person with a growth mindset is going to be like, figure it out, commit, and then figure it out. And that's what I think the difference between the three of us on this podcast have the growth mindset, because we don't mind looking stupid. I mean, go back and listen to our couple of podcasts, man. We've been doing this for 5 years and we're still not
Go back
good.
And listen to this one.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm looking stupid because I'm really not that smart. I tell people, I barely graduated high school. If I would have missed one more day in high school, I would have, failed. And then I'm a college dropout. If I can do it, you can do it. Like, I'm not that smart, but I do have a work ethic, right? And
yes.
I think that's what, and it's and then turning that into, let's figure it out. Like, there's nothing that I don't believe I can't figure out now. And that's the confidence I have now, because I figured out this game. And I'm figuring out every day. I'm a lifetime learner, right? So I didn't graduate college, but I've gone to how many conferences and networking, and I've found, I've surrounded myself with very, very smart people, and I could list them all and all their accomplishments. And I've gotten an education from just being around those people. When I have a big decision to make, those are the first. I've got an inner circle that I'm calling and saying, is this a dumb idea? Or is this a smart idea? What are the pros and cons? And then I'm weighing my options from
Dave,
there.
that's the growth mindset, though, because you don't have to be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
And you're willing to grow and learn, and you're willing to take advice from others who are smarter than you or have more experience. It doesn't have to be that smart. Maybe they just have a ton more experience than you do. And I really think it's from Carol Dweck, growth mindset. Everyone out there is having problems with their kids or who is stuck at something. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay. You want to have the growth mindset because you want to continue to grow and contribute in life. And that's what's going to be fulfilling. So having the mindset that Dave just talked about, it's an absolute growth mindset, not figuring it out and surrounding yourself with amazing people. I want to hear your book recommendation.
He just said constant improvement. Volley to Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to make a confession. I don't read. My mind, how I work, I cannot, even in school, this was as a, my, I don't know, ADHD, problems as a kid. I can't concentrate long enough to read through a book. I'll read 3 pages and then have to go back 2 pages and start over. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. That's where I think I have to kind of do to learn. I'm a hands-on type guy. That's how I've learned this business. Was I've managed property. I've sat in the manager's seat. I've cleaned out toilets. I've mowed grass. So I have a empathy towards some of our staff that way. And so that's how I've learned business. So I wish I could say, I've got all these great book recommendations. Rich Dad, Poor Dad changed my life. I read through that because it's got big print and it's only 100 pages. But I listen to things. I listen to people. I absorb from listening and doing and not reading. And so maybe there's people out there like me. But I wish I was a reader. I've got books, everywhere. I didn't need to read, but I can't concentrate. My mind is just always working.
This is an important point for everybody. Dave is a kinesthetic learner. right? Find out what kind of learner are you. Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Or are you a kinesthetic learner? You can be a balance of all three. But when Jake and I were one of our own conferences, boot camps, we sat down and Jake had the aha moment. He's like, I'm not dumb. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I need to do. Because like, you know, he felt like you did and like I did. We weren't great in school because we're not visual learners. I mean, I can read a book, but listening to something, I really need the pictures. I really need to be doing something and immersing in something. So everyone out there, if you're struggling with it, try to find what your learning modality is and crush it with that, because it's important. Dave, by being in it and getting involved and going to boot camps, right, and going to networking events, you're involved and you're doing it. So that's really, truly important.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm finally coming out of the closet saying I'm not a reader. Like, you know, it's not me. And for years I try to fake it, but I'm not, you know. So.
Dude, so come on over to the house, man. We'll mow the grass together and have some seal smoothies. It'll be great.
We'll do CrossFit since you invented it. I want to do CrossFit with the guy who invented it. It's funny. My dad was a big, you know, same thing. And I always said he invented CrossFit because he had like a pull-up bar and he'd go run a mile, then come in and pull up and then run.
It's been around for years, man.
Yeah. I just wish I would have coined the phrase, right? And,
no doubt.
So.
No doubt.
What
project are you excited about right now?
Man, I was excited about these deals I had on, again, back to goal writing. Everybody talks about writing your goals down, and I've just never done that. But it's been in my head. You know, I know where I want to go. And so, again, a lot of my goals I've really reached. And so I've had to sit back in the last maybe 18 months and go, okay, what are my new goals? And so, you know, I have some goals to finish this year. I don't know how this, you know, everything's going to play out with this coronavirus. You know, I feel like we're just on pause for 2 weeks to figure it out.
It's eating me up inside. I can't stand it.
If you're a doer, if you're, you know, make it happen person, right? You want to go out and just, you know, fix it and do it and, you know, and take, you know, everything and just, you know, plow forward. But, you know, it's kind of making you go, I can't right now. I don't want to make a dumb decision. I can't, you know, I don't want to lose earnest money on deals. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the next 2 weeks, you know, come back and we can record something in 3 weeks or a month and see what happens. You know, because tenants, you were talking about this I think I saw it on Instagram, you know, about the job loss in at the Hilton, right? I mean, those are the kind of, you know, impacts that we're going to start feeling. I'm sitting here, you know, in Nashville, Broadway, they've shut down Broadway. All those people who are servers, friends of ours who play music down there for tips, you know, they're out of a job. And if they're my renters, how are they going to pay rent to me? So there's just a lot to think about right now. And then back to the lending, you know, what's going to happen with Freddie and Fannie? Not saying they're going to stop lending.
Well, because credit lines are being pulled right now. Like if you're a entertainment, if you're a hospitality in terms of like hotels and things, they're pulling credit lines right now to make sure they're going to weather this. So could that impact, you know, the broader lending? It's possible. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot up in the air, you know. So again, I think we're on pause. So I'm not too excited about anything right this minute, right? Because it's like, well, I might have to pull out of these deals that I've got under contract and just say, hey, you know, in 6 months I'll revisit them. So I wish I could say I'm super excited about something, but I'm not. I'm excited to get past this.
Yeah, excited to get past this. And with that being said, you know, is there a way for folks to get a hold of you if they want to invest in it, you know, put some money in one of your deals or contact your brokerage? What's the best way for folks to network with you?
Yeah, I mean, I always give out my personal cell phone. It's crazy. I don't know if people, but I mean, they can call me on my cell phone number at 615-479-8737, or they can email me at dave@cedarrockcap.com. But if you're interested in talking, you know, multifamily or Middle Tennessee multifamily, you know, I'd love to talk to you. If you're interested in putting, you know, money in a deal that I'm doing, you know, we'd love to talk to you about that as well. So, you know, I think you guys and I align quite well. We're blue collar guys, right? That figured out a white collar investing, right? Or something, you know, and so I don't know what we were talking about earlier, but, you know, I'm
Coors Light.
Coors Light. That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe we get some sponsorship in the meantime for the Seal Smoothies, Gino. Like, you never know, right? Maybe something good will come out of this. So.
Because I'm a 4-wheeler racing, farm owning guy, right? I mean, most days I'm in this is my dress up attire.
Looking
right?
good,
man. Got a collared shirt on.
Fancy, bro.
Yeah. Most days I'm in a t-shirt and jeans, and that's the kind of lifestyle I want to live, right? If you tell me I have to put on a suit, I'm not going to do that. So unless we're going to a funeral,
it kind of makes your neck red, right? It gets a little chafage on the neck or something. You don't want that.
I can't. Those beers don't go down, right?
They don't.
They're strangling.
Stereotypes.
Yeah, I'd love to.
G-Dad, what you got here, man? How do we close this one out?
Well, for the record, I like Guinness. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If I gotta have a beer, I want to drink one really good beer. I'm gonna drink a nice dark Guinness. So, and in honor of St. Patrick's Day today. Today's St. Patrick's Day today. So, got a little corn
so you didn't even know that.
Yeah. Well, they cancel all the parades. So, for me, honestly, I think it's all about clarity. It's all about what you want to end up ultimately achieving. Is it the right time? Is it the right time to get in the stock market? I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I think you have to do your research, but then ultimately you have to commit and then figure it out and align yourself, like Dave said, with people who are doing it. And don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Ask for advice and seek mentors. Either pay to play or seek to serve. A couple ways to do that. So I think that's really important. And for Jake and myself, we didn't know. I wish I had learned syndication a lot sooner. But we didn't know that, right? So that's why you go out and you learn from people who are really smart and who are doing it and add value to their lives. And what Dave said, it should never be about the money. I don't think life should ever be about the money. I think money is just a means to an end. And as you can see what's going on, we're printing a ton of it. So money's pretty fake. So if you're working for money, you've already lost. And how do I know? Because I've been doing that for my entire adult life, for the majority of it, and I think if we can step back and see what's going on. And I think everyone just be clear for the next couple of weeks what's going on. We're going to have a huge transfer of wealth in the next 6 months. I mean, massive. Like you would not believe. People not doing deals. There's not enough liquidity. People who have capital are going to come in and buy deals. So try to, use your logic a little bit more than your emotions. And obviously just be careful of what's going on and just realize that this is going to pass like everything else. Back in 2009, we had the swine flu. 60 million people were infected in this country. I think that's the number, but we didn't even know. I mean, not that we didn't know, but I mean, it just passed. And this is going to pass too. So let's just, help each other out. Let's think about what's going on in the future and let's try to learn from this experience.
Stop buying all the toilet paper, please.
Stop buying the toilet paper. And if you need toilet paper, go to the ATM. And here's from Napoleon Hill this morning. Emotions, the subconscious mind is more susceptible to influence by impulses of thought mixed with feeling or emotion than those originating solely in the reasoning portion of the mind. Let that sink in. Look at the facts. Follow the money. I'm Jake Stenziano. Peace. I'm out of here. See you guys.
Dave, thanks for being on. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Hey, Gino, the two most common questions I've been asked are, how do I get into real estate and do my first deal? The other question, how do I scale my real estate portfolio? Well, gang, we have great news for you. Gino, tell them about it.
We can help you answer both of those questions. At jakeandgino.com, we offer a variety of micro courses to help you along your real estate journey. Our proprietary 3-step framework has helped hundreds of real estate entrepreneurs successfully get started in real estate with no experience, and it has also helped experienced real estate entrepreneurs take it to the next level.
If you want more information, visit www.jakeandgino.com/courses. That's JAKEANDGINO.com/courses and use coupon code PODCAST for 20% off your purchase on taking the next step in your multifamily journey.